All right, we are back. What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Your guys, Cody and Derek, back for another one, guys. Guys, we are so close to the start of free agency. So with that being said, there are some players who have already been cap casualty type of players who have already been cut from different NFL teams. I wanted to specifically, Derek, talk about this article that came out from My Sports Update, Ari over there, and he put up some potential cap casualties for each NFL team. Actually, a few of them have already happened. The one he did put up about the Buffalo Bills, they just released Naheim Hines and saved about $4 million in cap space there. But I wanted to kind of run through it, Derek, for each team, and then after that, kind of look and say, are there any players, if they do indeed get cut from their respective teams, that we think the Indianapolis Colts could or should have interest in? So without further ado, Derek, let's just dive right into it and have a conversation. So I think I'll just read all the different players off, and then we can kind of just talk about that afterwards. So the first one he did, obviously Buffalo, Naheim Hines, saves $4.6 million there. The Dolphins, Emmanuel Ogbah, they would save them nearly $14 million. The Patriots, which I believe this one's already happened, J.C. Jackson expected to be released by them. That will save them about $14.3 million, so that's definitely a no-brainer for them. The New York Jets, C.J. Uzomah, $5.3 million. AFC North, Tyus Bowser, $5.5 million. The Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Mixon, $5.75. The Cleveland Browns, Nick Chubb, $11.82. Pittsburgh Steelers, Allen Robinson, $10 million that they would save there. Texans, MJ Stewart, safety. Indianapolis Colts, Mo Alie-Cox, that would save them nearly $6 million. Cam Robinson for the Jacksonville Jaguars, $17.2 million. The Titans, Andre Dillard. And then moving over to the AFC West, the Denver Broncos, Tim Patrick. Kansas City Chiefs, which they've already done this one, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Las Vegas Raiders, Jimmy Garoppolo. The Chargers, Mike Williams. That would save them $20 million. The Dallas Cowboys, Leighton Vander Esch. The New York Giants, Mark Glowinski, familiar name there. Philadelphia Eagles, Kevin Byard, which that one's already happened as well. The Washington Commanders, Logan Thomas. The Chicago Bears, Travis Homer. The Detroit Lions, Tracy Walker. Green Bay Packers, David Bakhtiari. The Vikings, Harrison Smith. NFC South, Taylor Heineke for the Falcons. Terrence Marshall for the Carolina Panthers. Marcus May for the New Orleans Saints. Russell Gage for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Arizona Cardinals, Dennis Daly, the guard for them. The Rams, Joseph Noteboom. The San Francisco 49ers, Isaiah Oliver. The Seattle Seahawks, Jamal Adams. So, Derek, anybody there? I know some of those guys have already gotten cut. Some of those guys have not yet. Anybody there that has any interest to you if indeed they are gone from their respective teams because of the cap cut casualty?
I'll tell you, there's a couple different names. I think, C.J. Uzomah could be an interesting one for sure. It truly is going to ultimately come down to what the Colts deem are the best needs there. We talked about Naheim Hines in the stream that we were doing when we heard the news break. I wouldn't mind the idea of bringing Naheim Hines back. Just a guy that, has a skill set that's really good for a system like Shane Steichen's. It'll definitely be interesting to see how they approach that. But, we talk about like some of the cap casualties for Indianapolis, which we'll talk about in a minute. But it will be interesting to see what Indy does free agency wise and whether or not they want to bring in some of these guys that might end up being cap cuts themselves.
Could you see Indianapolis, say Taylor Heineke, for example, gets cut? Could you see Indianapolis potentially saying, hey, Taylor Heineke, come be our backup? Did you see them doing something like that, getting their backup quarterback situation figured out?
I don't, because like if you're gonna make that kind of move, I would just honestly much rather you just go with Gardner Minshew. And as much as I don't want Gardner Minshew to be around, it's kind of one of those situations. I'm like, if you're going to do that, you might as well just bring the other vet back. So either go young or just keep the guy that you already have there. And Taylor Heineke's already been, trying to, push his way into the conversation of a starter for a bunch of different reasons. I know for a fact he's not better than Anthony Richardson, but I mean, I just don't see a situation in which Indianapolis would make something like that happen.
How about a guy like Kevin Byard? Obviously, was traded from the Tennessee Titans, didn't have a great season with the Philadelphia Eagles. But again, Derek, I mean, when you think about it, like Byard's, we're talking about the need for some more veterans in that room when it comes to the safety room. Would Byard potentially be a cheap option for Indianapolis to say, hey, you know what? Let's kick the tires a little bit. Didn't look great, but Derek, before that, he's looked like an all-pro type of player for a long time. And so, would that make potential sense for Indianapolis to go get a guy like Kevin Byard on a cheap type of deal potentially? And I don't know what his market's going to be, Derek, but could that make sense for the Colts to add to their safety room a little bit and kick the tires a little bit on him and say, hey, maybe this is worth it? Because we've seen the Colts do that before, with different guys like Mike Mitchell coming in the middle of the season and really changing that, trajectory and really coming along and mentoring some of these young guys. Like we've seen that approach work for Indianapolis before. Would that make sense for the Colts to go get a guy like Kevin Byard potentially?
Yeah, I mean, that definitely could be an option. I've mentioned it before. Indianapolis needs to tap into the safety market one way or the other. It's too good not to. I would much rather get a younger player that maybe has a few more years left in them. But Kevin Byard, even albeit a guy that has a lot of experience, he's still got some stuff left in him, and the price tag will be a little bit nice for a player of his age. But again, he is a productive guy. He is somebody that does know how to play the position. He wouldn't have to be a all elite, all pro tackler or anything like that. He's a guy that does really good of just being that ball hawk in the backfield, which is something that Indy is looking for. So I would be all for it if Indy thought that that was the best route to go with when it came to their secondary. I have a feeling they'll be looking for someone a little bit more different, but I could see that as a possibility.
Okay. Yeah. This one's interesting to me, Derek, because obviously this guy's dealt with a lot of injuries. And so I could see an easy scenario where you say, nope, we're not even going to go into that. But I tell you what, man, Mike Williams, I've always liked what Mike Williams has done. I know he's a little bit older now, he's 29. But again, Derek, we've talked about, in the draft, say you go and get more of that speed type of wide receiver, that guy's a home run hitter. Mike Williams is just another big body possession type of wide receiver. Like, would it make sense, say you give him not a great contract? It's more of a prove it deal for Mike Williams. Would that make sense for Indianapolis to say, hey, this dude's got talent when he's on the field? And obviously we're kind of going about it in the way where we're not necessarily like expecting Mike Williams to come in and have 1,000 yards, but there's still some potential to tap into when this guy's healthy. He's still a very good wide receiver. Could you see Indianapolis doing something like that and maybe going both the veteran route and then get a guy in the draft as well? Just all around, like ultimately just giving Richardson as many weapons as you can.
Absolutely not. I do not believe that there would be in any way, shape, or form that Mike Williams would end up being a Indianapolis Colt in any way, shape, or form for a couple different reasons. Mainly because you mentioned a prove it deal. I don't think there's in any way, shape, or form Mike Williams takes one of those. Again, Mike Williams is allowed to do what he wants. And, like you mentioned, he is a really good weapon when he's healthy. The problem is, I can't look past the injuries. For a lot of other people, I can. But you're about to be 30. You've had several seasons in which you have had either season ending ones or stuff that has kept you out for a long periods of time. You're not reliable to be on the field, and to let alone be paid 20 plus $1 million. I mean, even if you got it, there's no way you could get him. What's a friendly deal, right? Like 10 million probably, but I mean, you're not going to get him for that. You're not going to get him for anything less than 17, 18 million a year, regardless if you give him a 1-year deal. And I'm not willing to put that kind of money into a guy that I can't rely upon. I just can't do it. And not to mention, I don't think there's in any way, shape, or form he would do it. I don't think there's any way. You just wouldn't want to go from that one safe place to another. He wouldn't want to do it. I don't think in any way, shape, or form he's going to take a lesser deal to that extent. And I don't see Indy doing it either. So
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
all for the vet wide receiver route, but for that, no, I don't see it.
Okay. How about a guy like J.C. Jackson? This is the last guy I'm going to talk about. Obviously, very disappointing when he signed with the Chargers. But, I mean, this is a guy a little bit older, Derek. He made a lot of money in New England last year. And I don't know what it would cost to bring him in, but would a guy like J.C. Jackson make sense? Kind of added some more veteran leadership in there a little bit more to Indianapolis. I don't know. I'm kind of like, I'm not really sure what you think about it, but I mean, I just look at some of these guys. I'm like, there's a reason all these guys are getting cut, right? There's a reason. But talking about some veteran corners, I mean, we've talked about it. Even if you draft a guy in the first couple rounds, would it make sense to just continue to add more veteran pieces in there?
Yeah, I mean, the main problem with JC Jackson recently has just been health problems mixed in with the contract. We kind of talked about it with Alie-Cox for Indianapolis. The main reason why he would be a cap casualty is just there's just not enough production for the contract that you're getting. But when it comes to JC Jackson, it's just one of those things. You're paying a guy $14, $15 million a year, and he's been hurt over the last couple of years. It's just not, you're not getting the production, and it just keeps coming back to you in that regard. I would not mind JC Jackson being brought in because, like you said, when he's healthy, he definitely could be that. But again, for the contract that you're getting hit with, for that amount of money to be unreliable, it would stink. It would suck the life out of me to potentially see that happen.
Okay. One more guy. We've already mentioned it, and then we'll talk about Mo Alie-Cox real quick. Naheim Hines. Naheim Hines got cut from Buffalo on Sunday as we record this. He just got cut a couple hours ago. So what are your thoughts about potentially reunion with Naheim Hines? I mean, you need a pass-catching running back. You do. You don't have a proven guy on your roster. I guess Evan Hall would be the best option that you would say on your roster. But, I mean, Naheim Hines, what are your thoughts on potential reunion there with Indianapolis, where he obviously knows, a lot of the people. He knows a lot of the staff. But obviously there's a new, head coach in town. There's a new quarterback in town. And I know he wanted out of Indianapolis. So I know when I posted that, like bring Naheim Hines back, there was some pushback. People saying, I want guys to be here in Indianapolis. But again, Derek, I look at that and I say, that's a different situation because the Colts, for once, they stunk in 2022. And for two, they didn't use Naheim Hines like he needed to be used. So I don't know what your thoughts are on the reunion with him, but I personally would be all for it.
Yeah, I mean, again, if Ballard thought that was the best option for that running back room, hey, listen, what better option to have another running back for a good price tag than a guy that was with this team for a few years and knows quite a few of the guys. I mean, it wouldn't be hard to get acclimated with quite a few of these guys. Would definitely be under a new quarterback and under a new coach and all of these different things. But again, Naheim Hines knows the majority of the offensive line. He already knows Jonathan Taylor. Not really much more else you need to worry about when it comes to Naheim Hines. And like we said, he'd be cheap, right? I mean, he's only getting paid like $4 million. I mean, it's not like we're already talking about cheap options for running backs. So I wouldn't mind. You would definitely be getting him for much less right off the bat because of him being cut. He's already making not that much money in Buffalo. He would already be coming in. You'd be able to get him for cheap. And for the system in which you want to try to use him, again, his skill set would work really well for the kind of disguise, mysterious scheme that Shane Steichen likes to run with running backs. And I think it would be a great set of circumstances for Naheim Hines to come back as long as Naheim Hines is healthy and can be kind of similar to what he was back even in 2021. It'll be interesting. That would definitely be one I would not be opposed to, just because also, Naheim Hines. I mean, again, I know I don't really think he wanted out. It was kind of one of those situations where um it was such a bad usage with the last coaching staff. You're right. I mean, I get why he kind of wanted a different change of scenery, but it was a different time then. It was a different time with a coaching staff that was on its way out and had basically given up. Like now we're in a circumstance where you feel so much better with your quarterback and coach combo that you have. I feel like it could be a good option for him.
Yeah, and again, like we've seen at the height, at the peak, when Naheim Hines is used properly, the dude is a weapon. I mean, good grief. You talk about that, Derek. Like, you look what even his rookie year with Andrew Luck, like, I mean, I think he had the most catches in the NFL or something near that for running backs. It was crazy how much Naheim Hines was utilized. And so it's like when he had a proper scheme and when he had a proper quarterback throwing him the football, Naheim Hines was an absolute dog back there, an absolute dog. So I think it makes a whole lot of sense. Again, Derek, I mean, you look at, right now, your, return game. You don't really have a whole lot in your return game. I mean, Dallas Flowers is coming off that Achilles injury. Isaiah Rodgers is no longer with you. And so, like, does it make sense for Indianapolis to bring back Naheim Hines, who has obviously a lot of experience doing that stuff? And so I think from the backup running back for what you're looking for there to also just your return game, I think that would make a lot of sense.
Yep, absolutely. It definitely makes a lot of sense, and I could definitely see Indy trying to work through that. And it's really going to be interesting to see if what kind of moves they make with the cap that they have. It's also going to be a matter of like what does Indy do prior to free agency with trying to bring back some of these other guys. It'll be interesting to see how that cap casualties also work in to how the Colts try to bring back some of the remaining guys already.
Yeah, real quick before we head off here, talk to me about the Alie-Cox projection there from Ari.
Yeah, it makes the most sense, and it's the same thing we've been saying for a long time. I mean, you're paying the guy $6 million a year to just be a blocking tight end. Like, I know Indianapolis does utilize him in some packages. Like, I mean, I think his best highlight of the season last year, two good highlights, was obviously where that fake fourth down where they hit him for that route, but he had absolutely no speed and got tracked down 5 yards later, even after having to come back to get it. And then the other big one, Anthony Richardson, when he made that elite throw to Alie-Cox and Cox was able to score a touchdown. Like, that's really the only two highlights I get from him. That's the two plays that I know that he was there. Like, Ballard talks so much about this tight end group, like what Will Mallory provides, what Kylan Granson provides, Jelani Woods, who's coming back, and what he can become, right? Like, you talk about this tight end room and how great it is already. Like, there's no need to have a fourth guy who's making the most money, by the way, who you talk about having the lowest production and the lowest potential, right? So why are we paying that much? It just doesn't make sense. You have young guys at tight end who all deserve snaps, who all can go out there and block. Okay, seriously, like, does Alie-Cox production and blocking really matter that much to be paying him $6 million a year? Really? No, it doesn't. Get out of here with that. Please cut him. Move on. Let your young guys come in and do what they do, and let that tight end room blossom. They're not blossoming, letting this other guy come in, being paid as much as he is, just to block. Really, it's not worth
Yeah, exactly. No, it's not. So, guys, let us know your overall thoughts on some of these potential cap casualties or even the cap casualties that have happened. Let us know your thoughts on if any players you'd like to see the Colts kick the tires on potentially, or if there's any other, free agents that you think could potentially be cut here that you want the Colts to do. Also, what are your thoughts on Mo Alie-Cox? Do you think he should stay with the Colts or should get cut? Let us know all those things in the comments below. That'll do it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, guys, go Colts.